In the shadowy corners of a small Colorado town nestled against the towering Rockies, the name Christopher Watts became anathema, a specter haunting the peaceful community of Frederick. It was a place where the scent of pine mingled with the laughter of children playing in the park, a community where the sunsets painted the sky in hues of amber and purple. But it was also a place where the veil between the world and the unknown had been rudely torn asunder by the chilling revelations of the Christopher Watts murder case. As the autumn leaves began to turn, and the air grew crisp with the approach of winter, the story of Watts unfolded with the grim intensity of a dark fairy tale. It was a tale of deceit, of a seemingly perfect family shattered by the unfathomable, of a man who would become synonymous with the most heinous of crimes. Christopher Watts, a seemingly ordinary man with a cheerful disposition and a penchant for outdoor adventures, was soon revealed to be a cunning predator, a monster lurking in the very heart of his own home. The case began with the mysterious disappearance of Watts' wife, Shannon, and their two young daughters, Bella and Celeste, and quickly escalated into a haunting nightmare as the truth emerged, revealing a web of lies, deceit, and unimaginable horror. The town of Frederick, once a sanctuary of tranquility, was now a battleground of grief and shock, as law enforcement delved deeper into the chilling depths of Watts' twisted psyche, uncovering a tale of betrayal and murder that would leave an indelible mark on the annals of American crime. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a glow over the tranquil town of Frederick, Colorado, as the residents went about their evening routines. Among them was a seemingly ordinary man named Christopher Watts, a devoted husband and father with a bright future ahead. Little did anyone know that this picturesque scene was about to shatter into a million pieces, as the truth about Christopher Watts' sinister intentions emerged, revealing a monstrous facade behind a seemingly perfect life. It was a chilling beginning to a story that would captivate the nation, a tale of love, lies, and murder that would leave no one untouched. As night fell, Christopher Watts, the embodiment of suburban normalcy, was about to become the center of a harrowing tale that would expose the darkest corners of the human heart. In the hushed corridors of the dark and foreboding Fremont County Courthouse, where the echoes of justice had long since faded, a name resonated like a chilling bell tolling the hour of truth. Christopher Watts, a seemingly ordinary man with a gentle smile and a penchant for outdoor hobbies, had become the focal point of a national nightmare. His serene home in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, had become the macabre setting for a series of grim discoveries that would shatter the idyllic facade of his suburban life. It was there, beneath the shadow of his backyard gazebo, that the decomposing bodies of his wife, Shannon Watts, and their two young daughters, Bella and Celeste, were unearthed in a chilling tableau of parental betrayal. As the police delved deeper into the haunting tapestry of lies and secrets, the true horror of Christopher Watts' actions began to unravel, casting a long, sinister shadow over the community and leaving an indelible mark on the collective psyche of America. In the desolate expanse of Colorado, where the mountains rise like jagged sentinels and the sky stretches endlessly across the plains, Christopher Watts lived a life that would soon unravel in the most terrifying fashion. A charming family man with a seemingly idyllic life, Watts worked tirelessly to maintain his facade, but beneath the surface, his darkness seethed like a primordial force. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves turned to a kaleidoscope of orange and red, Watts made a fateful decision that would cast a shadow over his name and leave a stain on the lives of those who loved him. The townspeople of Frederick, a quaint community nestled against the backdrop of the Rocky Mountains, had no idea that their beloved father and husband was about to shatter their peaceful existence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced across the town, Watts set in motion a sequence of events that would shake the very foundation of trust within their community. In the desolate expanse of Colorado, where the mountains rise like jagged sentinels and the sky stretches endlessly across the plains, Christopher Watts lived a life that would soon unravel in the most terrifying fashion. A charming family man with a seemingly idyllic life, Watts worked tirelessly to maintain his facade, but beneath the surface, his darkness seethed like a primordial force. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves turned to a kaleidoscope of orange and red, Watts made a fateful decision that would cast a shadow over his name and leave a stain on the lives of those who loved him. The townspeople of Frederick, a quaint community nestled against the backdrop of the Rocky Mountains, had no idea that their beloved father and husband was about to shatter their peaceful existence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced across the town, Watts set in motion a sequence of events that would shake the very foundation of trust within their community. He meticulously planned, the meticulousness of his execution belying the chaos within, as he lured his unsuspecting wife and their young daughter into the night, leaving them to face an unimaginable fate. In the solitude of the woods, where the whispers of the wind were the only companions, Watts buried his victims, the earth's cold grasp sealing their secrets. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months, but the truth remained hidden, like a dark enigma woven into the fabric of the land. Until the day when the weight of his guilt became too heavy to bear, and the shroud of silence began to crack, revealing the chilling truth to the world. The community of Frederick would never be the same, for Christopher Watts had not only destroyed lives, but had shattered the very essence of innocence that once made their small town a sanctuary of peace and joy. The townspeople of Frederick, a quaint community nestled against the backdrop of the Rocky Mountains, had no idea that their beloved father and husband was about to shatter their peaceful existence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced across the town, Watts set in motion a sequence of events that would shake the very foundation of trust within their community. The quiet hum of life, punctuated by the occasional bark of a dog or the gentle rustle of the leaves, was abruptly interrupted by the piercing wail of sirens as emergency vehicles raced through the streets. The normally serene Frederick was now a whirlwind of chaos, a stark contrast to the tranquil image Watts had cultivated for so long. He had always been the rock, the reliable provider, the heart of the family, but as the investigation unfolded, the true nature of his character was laid bare. The townspeople, once united by the warmth of Watts' smiling face, found themselves torn apart by suspicion and sorrow. They had trusted him, cherished him, and now, as the evidence mounted, they were forced to confront the chilling reality that their family man was also a cunning, calculating murderer. The days that followed were a relentless cascade of revelations, each more harrowing than the last, as Watts' facade crumbled like a house of cards. The mountain air, once a symbol of the serene beauty of the area, now seemed to carry the weight of his transgressions, the crispness of autumn turning to the stench of decay. As the townspeople grappled with the enormity of what had been uncovered, they found solace in each other, in the strength of their shared humanity, and in the unwavering belief that justice would be served. Yet the shadow cast by Christopher Watts lingered long after the investigation was complete, a stark reminder that even in the most picturesque of places, the darkest of deeds can be hidden in plain sight. In the desolate expanse of Colorado, where the mountains rise like jagged sentinels, and the sky stretches endlessly across the plains, Christopher Watts lived a life that would soon unravel in the most terrifying fashion. A charming family man with a seemingly idyllic life, Watts worked tirelessly to maintain his facade, but beneath the surface, his darkness seethed like a primordial force. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves turned to a kaleidoscope of orange and red, Watts made a fateful decision that would cast a shadow over his name and leave a stain on the lives of those who loved him. The townspeople of Frederick, a quaint community nestled against the backdrop of the Rocky Mountains, had no idea that their beloved father and husband was about to shatter their peaceful existence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced across the town, Watts set in motion a sequence of events that would shake the very foundation of trust within their community. The days passed like a somber dirge, and whispers of discontent began to ripple through the fabric of Frederick. Neighbors who once shared laughter over backyard barbecues now exchanged furtive glances as they watched for any sign of trouble. Watts, the man who had always been the embodiment of reliability, had suddenly become the specter that everyone feared. The once serene town was now a stage set for a tragic ballet of deceit and horror. It was a place where secrets lay buried under layers of dirt, and the truth could be as elusive as the mountain air on a cold winter's night. The more Watts tried to control the narrative, the more it slipped away from him, a tale of twisted intent and a soul in shambles. The weight of his actions pressed down upon him like an unwelcome shroud, suffocating any semblance of innocence he had ever known. And so, as the seasons turned and the world carried on, the citizens of Frederick grappled with the enormity of the betrayal, their community forever altered by the man who had so effortlessly woven a web of lies around them. The chilling air of October held a foreboding silence as Watts, fueled by a sinister cocktail of jealousy and obsession, executed a plan that would unravel his perfect life. He had meticulously mapped out each step, ensuring that no trace of his deceit would lead back to him. The children, his innocent victims, played in the backyard, unaware of the horror that awaited them. Watt's hands trembled with anticipation as he drove them to a secluded spot, the landscape a stark contrast to the warmth of his home. The world seemed to hold its breath as he buried them, their laughter now a haunting echo in the ears of the living. The townspeople, who had once held him in such high regard, now struggled to comprehend the monstrous truth. The once vibrant community was consumed by a darkness they had never imagined, and as the sun rose the next day, the world as they knew it had irrevocably changed. The investigation that followed was a grueling pursuit of the truth, a relentless quest for answers that would uncover the chilling depths of Christopher Watts' psyche. The detective's keen eyes scrutinized the evidence, piecing together the puzzle with meticulous care. DNA samples were meticulously analyzed. Photographs of the children's toys scattered on the grass told a tragic story of innocence lost. The search for answers grew more desperate as each day passed, the weight of the tragedy bearing down on the weary law enforcement officers. Watts, in his web of deceit, had left behind a labyrinth of clues, but the determination of the investigators was unwavering. They pored over the surveillance footage, the time-lapse images capturing the moments leading up to the children's disappearance. The community was torn apart, their trust shattered, and whispers of conspiracy theories swirled through the air. The once serene streets were now patrolled by a heavy presence, the mood somber as the truth slowly unraveled. The media circus grew, journalists camping out in the town square, their cameras capturing every move of the investigators. Watts, who had seemed so invincible, was now on the brink of collapse, the walls of his facade crumbling around him. The police had discovered a cache of incriminating evidence, a journal filled with his dark thoughts and plans. As the evidence mounted, the pressure on Watts grew, and he knew his time was running out. The trial that followed was a spectacle, the courtroom buzzing with anticipation. The jury, sequestered away from the outside world, would ultimately decide the fate of Christopher Watts, and with each piece of evidence presented, the air grew thick with tension. The verdict would change the course of history in this small town, leaving a lasting scar on the hearts of those who had once known him as a pillar of the community. The investigators combed through the evidence with a meticulous eye, piecing together the shattered remnants of Watts' carefully constructed facade. Surveillance footage captured his shadowy figure, a silent sentinel in the night as he returned to his home, the weight of his crimes a dark cloud over his shoulders. The children's toys lay scattered, untouched, a poignant reminder of their innocence. The scent of fresh earth lingered, a grim testament to the grave he had dug. As more details emerged, the community's shock turned to anger, demanding justice for the precious lives stolen from them. Watts' once adoring fans now whispered his name with fear, their admiration now tinged with revulsion. The trial was a spectacle, a courtroom drama that captivated the nation, the jury tasked with delivering a verdict that would define Christopher Watts' fate. Inside, Watts sat, his face a mask of cold calculation, his eyes never wavering as he faced the consequences of his monstrous actions. The prosecution laid out the chilling facts. The defense tried to weave a narrative of mental illness, but the cold, hard evidence was overwhelming. The judge delivered the verdict, and as the sentence was read, the courtroom erupted into a cacophony of emotions, a mixture of relief and sorrow. Watts was found guilty, and the community breathed a collective sigh of relief, knowing that some semblance of justice had been served. Yet the damage had been done. The scars left behind would take generations to heal. The children's laughter had been replaced by a solemn silence, a somber reminder of the darkness that had been let loose in their town. The investigation that followed was a grueling pursuit of the truth, a relentless quest for answers that would uncover the chilling depths of Christopher Watts' psyche. As the detectives sifted through the evidence, they pieced together a harrowing narrative of manipulation and despair. Watts' neighbors, once content with their quiet lives, now lived in constant fear, their trust shattered by the revelation of their neighbors' monstrous acts. The children's toys remained untouched, a stark reminder of the lives that had been stolen away. Watts had been a pillar of the community, a man who volunteered, a man who seemed to have it all, but beneath that facade was a mind twisted by his own dark desires. The search for the victim's remains was a heart-wrenching operation, and as each discovery brought the chilling truth closer to light, the community's grief and anger swelled. The courtroom became a battleground, where Watts faced his accusers and the justice system that was determined to bring him to account. The trial was a spectacle, a microcosm of human nature's capacity for both kindness and cruelty. The world watched, their eyes wide with shock and disbelief, as the once beloved man was exposed for the monster he truly was. The verdict was a reflection of the community's collective despair, and as Watts was sentenced to life in prison, the weight of his actions bore down on all who had known him. The town would never be the same, but the pursuit of justice had brought a measure of closure to the families left behind, a stark reminder that even in the darkest of times, the light of truth can shine through. The relentless investigation, spearheaded by determined detectives, delved into the fabric of Watts' seemingly idyllic life, sifting through the debris of his lies and deceit. As the case unfolded, it became a tapestry of suspicion, fear, and the unwavering determination to bring justice to the children who had been stolen from the world so brutally. Each clue, every fragment of evidence, was scrutinized under the microscope of forensics, pieced together with the precision of a skilled artisan. Watts' own home, once a sanctuary of warmth and love, now felt like a mausoleum, its every corner echoing with the screams of the children who had never been allowed to grow. The town, once a close-knit community, now stood divided, its members torn between disbelief and the shattering truth. The once-trusted face of the local hardware store owner was now the face of a monster, and as the investigation deepened, so too did the layers of his dark secrets. Watts, a man once celebrated for his community service, now faced the ultimate consequence of his actions, the weight of his monstrous behavior crashing down upon him as the world learned of his chilling crimes. The children's laughter had become a symphony of sorrow, a haunting reminder of the innocence they were denied. The once serene landscape of his neighborhood was now forever marred by the stain of his monstrous deeds, and as the wheels of justice turned, it became clear that the cost of Watts' sin would be one that the entire community would bear for years to come. The children's laughter had become a symphony of sorrow, a haunting reminder of the innocence they were denied. The once serene landscape of his neighborhood was now forever marred by the stain of his monstrous deeds, and as the wheels of justice turned, it became clear that the cost of Watts' sin would be one that the entire community would bear for years to come. The townspeople, once united in the simple pleasures of life, now grappled with the weight of their shared grief, their trust in humanity shaken to its core. The police, relentless in their pursuit of the truth, sifted through the evidence, uncovering more and more pieces of Watts' twisted puzzle. Each discovery only served to deepen the despair, as the faces of the lost children flickered across the screens of every news report. The local schools, once havens of learning and laughter, were now draped in a heavy silence, the halls echoing with the absence of their young students. The once vibrant community center, a beacon of togetherness, had become a place of solemn reflection, where parents and friends gathered to share their sorrow and seek solace in one another's arms. The streets, once bustling with the sound of life, were now quiet, save for the occasional wail of a siren or the distant echo of a child's voice calling out for their mother. As the trial approached, the weight of the evidence against Watts mounted, each revelation shattering the last remnants of the man they once knew. The defense, struggling to present a plausible explanation, found themselves increasingly cornered, their attempts to paint Watts as a victim of circumstance falling flat against the overwhelming evidence. The prosecution, on the other hand, was relentless, painting a picture of a man consumed by his own desires, willing to sacrifice the lives of innocent children to satisfy his twisted needs. The courtroom, a place of justice and hope, had become a place of horror and despair, as the community gathered to witness the unraveling of one of their own. The judge, a stern figure of authority, presided over the proceedings with an air of gravity, his words a stark reminder of the gravity of the crimes that had been committed. The jury, a diverse group of citizens drawn from the town, was tasked with the solemn duty of deciding the fate of a man who had shown them none. As the final arguments were made, the courtroom was filled with a palpable sense of anticipation, the air thick with the tension of what was to come. The verdict, when it was finally delivered, was a heavy blow to the community, a confirmation that the man they had known was nothing more than a monster in human form. The townspeople, their hearts heavy with loss, gathered once again, this time not to celebrate or mourn, but to seek healing and find strength in each other's arms. The legacy of Watts' monstrous actions would linger long after the trial had concluded, a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk within even the most seemingly ordinary among us. The community that had once held Watts in such high esteem was now reeling from the revelations that had shattered their peace, the once bustling streets now ghostly quiet, a palpable sense of loss hanging in the air like a thick fog. As the investigation unfolded, each piece of evidence served to peel back the layers of his seemingly perfect facade, revealing the cold, calculating mind of a serial killer. Photos, text messages, and even the faintest of clues seemed to cry out for justice, for the children who had never been seen or heard from again. Watts, once a local hero, now found himself on the receiving end of the law's unforgiving grip, his Ansu-fostered home now a crime scene, his life one that had been turned into a living nightmare. The townsfolk, once united by shared dreams and laughter, were now torn asunder, their lives irrevocably changed by the specter of the man who had betrayed them all. In the aftermath, counselors were brought in to help the children affected, but the wounds inflicted were deep, and the healing process long. Watts' case became a grim tale of what could happen when a man who appears to be so kind and gentle turns out to be nothing but a master manipulator, a monster in human flesh who preys on the most vulnerable. And as the sun rose and set over the scarred landscape of the neighborhood, the shadow of Christopher Watts' name was cast long and dark, a cautionary tale that would resonate in the hearts of everyone who ever trusted in the goodness of strangers. The children's laughter had become a symphony of sorrow, a haunting reminder of the innocence they were denied. The once serene landscape of his neighborhood was now forever marred by the stain of his monstrous deeds, and as the wheels of justice turned, it became clear that the cost of Watts' sin would be one that the entire community would bear for years to come. The local police department, overburdened and overwhelmed, worked tirelessly to piece together the shattered pieces of this harrowing case, their every effort a testament to the indomitable human spirit. The media circus, hungry for headlines, swarmed the town like locusts, broadcasting the grim details of Watts' heinous acts across the nation, leaving nothing to the imagination. Amidst the chaos, the families of the missing children clung to each other, their strength tested by the relentless flow of news and speculation. The parents of the lost toddlers, once the pillars of this close-knit community, now found solace only in each other's arms, their tears blending into a river of despair. The town's churches, once places of solace and refuge, now stood empty, the pews gathering dust as the faithful found it impossible to pray amidst the cacophony of loss and betrayal. Watts' name, once synonymous with kindness and generosity, now became anathema, a symbol of the most heinous of crimes. The prosecution, armed with a mountain of evidence, sought to deliver justice, but even as they stood before the court, the shadow of doubt lingered, a specter that haunted them as much as it did the community. The defense, a team of seasoned attorneys, fought tooth and nail to save their client, their every move scrutinized by the public and the press. The courtroom, a place of order and decorum, became a battleground, a stage where the truth and the lie danced a dangerous waltz. As the trial progressed, the community watched, their hearts heavy with the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future. The children's laughter, once a beacon of joy, now echoed through the corridors of time, a reminder of what was and what could never be. The children's laughter had become a symphony of sorrow, a haunting reminder of the innocence they were denied, while the once serene landscape of his neighborhood was now forever marred by the stain of his monstrous deeds. As the wheels of justice turned, it became clear that the cost of Watts' sin would be one that the entire community would bear for years to come. The media hounds had descended upon the town like a swarm of vultures, their cameras clicking ceaselessly as they tried to uncover every detail, every possible reason for such a heinous act. Families huddled together, seeking solace in each other's arms as they grappled with the unimaginable. The townsfolk whispered behind closed doors, casting judgment, seeking answers in the face of such a tragedy. The once vibrant streetlights seemed to flicker with sadness, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance and weave through the streets, a macabre ballet that told the story of a soul lost to evil. Watts, confined to a cell, spent his nights shrouded in darkness, his thoughts consumed by the faces of his innocent victims, their smiles now etched into his memories as the only thing he was left with, that cold, hollow reflection of his once caring self. The courtroom became a crucible, where his actions were dissected and scrutinized, each witness a reminder of the life he had taken and the lives he had destroyed. The trial was a marathon, a relentless battle of truth versus deceit, as prosecutors pieced together the fragmented puzzle of his past, revealing a tapestry of abuse and darkness that had lurked beneath the surface of his otherwise unassuming facade. And as the jury delivered their verdict, the entire nation watched, their hearts heavy with the weight of justice, knowing that even in the face of such a profound evil, there must be a reckoning that would change the course of history and remind us all that evil never truly dies. It merely adapts, evolves, and sometimes it even finds a willing host in the most unsuspecting of places. As the courtroom fell into a profound silence, the judge's voice cut through the somber atmosphere, pronouncing Christopher Watts guilty of all charges, his name now forever synonymous with the most heinous crimes. The weight of the world seemed to settle on his shoulders as he was led away in shackles, a stark contrast to the free-spirited man who had once seemed invincible. His wife, Anna, who had stood by him for so long, was nowhere to be seen, her absence a silent acknowledgment of the chasm that now yawned between them. The victims' families, while still suffering, found a glimmer of hope in the closure they had been denied for far too long. Their words, filled with anger and sorrow, echoed through the chambers, demanding justice for their lost loved ones. The defense attorney, his voice quivering, tried one last-ditch appeal, but it was to no avail as the judge upheld the guilty verdict. As Watts was led from the room, a chilling thought lingered in the air, one that whispered about the countless others who might walk a similar path of destruction. The world outside watched with a mixture of horror and resolve, a collective vow to never again turn a blind eye to the monsters among us. The story of Christopher Watts, a man who had seemingly everything to lose, had become a stark against the dangers that lurked in the shadows of our seemingly perfect lives. The trial was a marathon, a relentless battle of truth versus deceit, as prosecutors pieced together the fragmented puzzle of his past, revealing a tapestry of abuse and darkness that had lurked beneath the surface of his otherwise unassuming facade. And as the jury delivered their verdict, the entire nation watched, their hearts heavy with the weight of justice, knowing that even in the face of such a profound evil, there must be a reckoning that would change the course of history and remind us all that evil never truly dies. It merely adapts, evolves, and sometimes, it even finds a willing host in the most unsuspecting of places. The courtroom became a stage for the unfolding tragedy, with each witness a voice for the voiceless, a portrait of lives stolen and futures shattered. Christopher Watts, the once picture-perfect husband and father, now stood as a grotesque embodiment of malevolence, his actions reduced to a chilling narrative of calculated destruction. The evidence was overwhelming, the testimonies heart-wrenching, yet it was the victims' families who bore the brunt of the pain, their lives irrevocably altered by the actions of one twisted mind. As the judge pronounced the sentence, a collective sigh of relief washed over the courtroom, but the echoes of the horror would linger long after the last juror had left the building. The Watts family name was now synonymous with evil, a cautionary tale for generations to come, a stark reminder that even the most well-hidden monsters can be unearthed by the relentless pursuit of justice. And so, as Christopher Watts was led away to face his fate, the world watched, hoping that the weight of his crimes might serve as a catalyst for change, that it might prompt a society to confront its own shadows and demand better from its members. But in the end, the only solace that could be found was in the knowledge that justice had been served, and that the innocent had not been forgotten. The jury's decision hung in the balance, a silent vote that would echo through the annals of justice. Christopher Watts stood before them, a man whose life had been a tapestry of deception and destruction, his eyes hollow with the realization of the consequences of his actions. The judge, a stoic figure of authority, pronounced the sentence, his voice a solemn drumbeat that underscored the gravity of the moment. As Watts was led away, the crowd outside erupted into a cacophony of emotions, some cheering for justice, others weeping for the families who had lost so much. The trial had been a stark reminder that beneath the surface of everyday life, darkness could lurk, waiting to pounce on the unsuspecting. It was a stark warning, a chilling echo of the fragility of human nature, and a testament to the enduring power of the judicial system to bring balance to a world often skewed by chaos. The case of Christopher Watts would become a cautionary tale, a chilling narrative that would be whispered in dark corners and discussed in hushed tones, a stark reminder that even the most seemingly ordinary individuals could harbor the capacity for unspeakable evil. And as the nation moved on, the legacy of the Watts trial would remain, a stark testament to the fact that while evil never truly dies, neither does the relentless pursuit of justice, the unwavering quest to hold those who transgress accountable, and the enduring hope that humanity's capacity for good will always outshine the shadows that threaten to engulf us. The courtroom became a crucible, where his actions were dissected and scrutinized, each witness a reminder of the life he had taken and the lives he had destroyed. The trial was a marathon, a relentless battle of truth versus deceit, as prosecutors pieced together the fragmented puzzle of his past, revealing a tapestry of abuse and darkness that had lurked beneath the surface of his otherwise unassuming facade. And as the jury delivered their verdict, the entire nation watched, their hearts heavy with the weight of justice, knowing that even in the face of such a profound evil, there must be a reckoning that would change the course of history and remind us all that evil never truly dies. It merely adapts, evolves, and sometimes, it even finds a willing host in the most unsuspecting of places. The judge's gavel echoed through the hallowed halls, a final punctuation to a saga that had captivated the nation. Christopher Watts sat in his cell, his eyes hollow, his soul shattered, as he realized the consequences of his actions had reached far beyond the confines of his own life. The media swarmed the courthouse, their cameras capturing the moment the sentence was read, a sentence that would forever define him and the lives he had stolen. The public's reaction was a mix of relief and sorrow, a testament to the enduring power of justice and the human capacity for empathy. Watts' story became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that beneath the veneer of normalcy, the most dangerous predators often lurk, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the years passed, the victims' families found solace in the fact that their loved ones' deaths had not been in vain, that their voices had been heard, and that justice had been served. And in the quiet of their hearts, they vowed to keep their loved ones' memories alive, ensuring that the darkness that had consumed Christopher Watts would never again find a place to thrive.